Are you content that more than 5 out of 7 new homes will go to immigrants?
Well, that's not the truth, and that's not the
That's
case.
what will happen.
Well, that's not the reality, because
where the 2.5 million immigrants that are in Rachel Reeves' budget figures going to turn up? Where are they going to live?
Well, there's plenty of housing in the UK, but the houses, especially social
hang on. You can't on the one hand say we've got to build this 1.5 million houses and then say there's plenty of housing already.
There is plenty of housing, Trevor, already, but there's not enough for the people that desperately need it. So the homes, especially under our affordable homes programme, which is social and affordable housing, they will be there for people who desperately need them, local people. We've already outlined how we're going to support veterans and people who are fleeing domestic.
Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, recently made a statement that sparked widespread outrage across the nation. For countless families living in temporary accommodations or waiting endlessly for housing, her words felt like a slap in the face. She suggested that migrants should remain a priority in housing allocation, leaving many British citizens bewildered and questioning their own standing in their country. This was a tough day for Angela, no doubt. But the bigger picture wasn't just about one statement. It was about a growing discontent among citizens who see new housing developments rise around them, only to realize they won't benefit from them. How can a government appear so blind to the plight of 270,000 homeless individuals and families while prioritizing others? Angela's comments didn't just stir controversy. They ignited a storm of anger and frustration. When pressed about her claims that 5 out of 7 newly built homes in the UK were being allocated to migrants, her response was far from reassuring. Under pressure, she fumbled her words, avoided direct answers, and failed to address the pressing issue. It wasn't just a misstep, it was a debacle. Her inability to provide clarity left many feeling even more hopeless. Citizens began asking, where is the leadership that understands and represents us? In moments like this, the public's trust in politicians can hit rock bottom. Instead of addressing the core of the issue, debates devolve into tribal warfare. On platforms like Twitter, people stop listening to each other, their bios serving as battlegrounds rather than their arguments. It's no longer about the issue, but about who's saying it. For families waiting years for housing, Angela's vague and scripted answers only deepen their wounds. Why hasn't anyone defended the interests of British citizens left struggling without support? And why do those in power fail to explain decisions that impact lives so profoundly? Enter Ricky Gervais. The comedian, known for his biting wit, wasted no time delivering a scathing response to the fiasco. When asked about Rayner's remarks, he couldn't help but laugh. His reaction resonated with many who viewed the situation as both absurd and deeply troubling. "Do you know the worst thing?" he said. "Apart from the pandemic, the devastation, the deaths, the strain on the health service, and people losing their livelihoods, it's that those in charge do what they want." Gervais wasn't just criticizing Angela Rayner. He was taking aim at the broader failure of leadership. For him, the issue wasn't just her lack of preparation or her evasive answers. It was the systemic detachment of those in power from the realities of everyday life. In his signature style, Gervais mocked the disconnect, ridiculing the reliance on scripted responses and the inability to address real concerns. His laughter wasn't just directed at Rayner. It was a reflection of the public's growing distrust in their leaders. The anger wasn't just about housing allocation. It was about broken promises, lost faith, and leaders who seemed more focused on maintaining appearances than solving problems. People have had enough of watching politicians read from prepared notes, unable to think or respond dynamically in critical moments. Even within Rayner's own party, cracks are beginning to show. The divisions in the Labour Party are becoming more evident, and the frustration is no longer just external, it's internal. Leaders like Rayner, who rely heavily on pre-written answers, are being seen as emblematic of a wider issue, a mechanical, disjointed leadership that lacks authenticity and initiative. Meanwhile, Ricky Gervais' criticism extended beyond the political realm. He pointed to a deeper societal issue: the erosion of trust not only in government but in one another. People are so disillusioned with their leaders that they've turned to cancel culture, watching each other with suspicion and fear. When people stop believing in their leaders, Gervais said, they start watching each other, and that creates a suffocating atmosphere where everyone is afraid to speak. For Gervais, this toxic environment is emblematic of a society in decline, a society where distrust and fear reign, and truth becomes a risk. His commentary wasn't just about Rayner's political misstep. It was a broader critique of a system that has alienated its citizens and created an atmosphere of exhaustion and hopelessness. So, what happens when leaders are put under the spotlight? For Angela Rayner, the answer seemed simple. Stick to the script. But as viewers watched her rely on pre-written responses during parliamentary sessions, it became clear that this approach only fueled public discontent. People want leaders who can think on their feet, who can connect with the realities they face daily. But instead, they're met with rehearsed lines and vague assurances. The controversy surrounding Angela Rayner's comments highlights a critical juncture in British society, where the divide between politicians and the public feels wider than ever. Her remarks, that there's no housing crisis in the UK and that migrants should remain a priority in housing allocation, came across as tone-deaf to the millions of British citizens struggling to secure stable housing. For a nation grappling with skyrocketing property prices, stagnating wages, and a growing homelessness problem, her words felt disconnected from the lived reality of everyday people. It's impossible to ignore the numbers. In 2024, over 270,000 people in the UK are classified as homeless, with tens of thousands living in temporary accommodations. Many families endure years of waiting on housing lists, forced to stay in overcrowded or unsafe conditions while hoping for relief. The government's inability to provide adequate housing has created an undercurrent of frustration that's been simmering for years. On top of this, the property market is increasingly inaccessible. Home ownership has become a distant dream for many, with average house prices soaring past £286,000 and the average renter now spending over 30% of their income on housing costs. While these challenges affect citizens across the board, they are particularly devastating for low-income families, young professionals, and single parents. When Angela Rayner claimed there wasn't a housing crisis, it struck a nerve because it directly contradicted the visible struggles of countless citizens. The suggestion that newly built homes should primarily be allocated to migrants compounded the outrage, not necessarily because people opposed supporting migrants, but because it made them feel like their own needs were being dismissed. Mismanagement and political blindness. This crisis isn't new. It's been years in the making, fueled by a combination of factors. A lack of investment in social housing has been one of the most significant contributors. Between the 1980s and today, the UK has seen a dramatic reduction in the construction of affordable homes, leaving a void that the private market hasn't filled. Additionally, restrictive zoning laws, rising construction costs, and a slow-moving bureaucracy have only exacerbated the problem. For Angela Rayner to dismiss this as a non-issue reveals a troubling disconnect between the political elite and the people they serve. Leaders are expected to acknowledge problems head-on and present viable solutions, even if those solutions aren't immediately popular. Instead, Rayner's vague and evasive responses during parliamentary debates only deepened the public's skepticism. The reliance on pre-written answers during critical discussions didn't help either. For many citizens, watching her read from prepared notes felt like confirmation of what they've long suspected, that their leaders are more concerned with optics than genuine solutions. Leadership requires not only competence, but also empathy, qualities that many feel have been missing from the current political discourse. Ricky Gervais, a voice of the people. In the face of such political turmoil, public figures like Ricky Gervais have stepped into the void, providing commentary that resonates with the frustrations of ordinary people. Gervais, known for his sharp wit and no-holds-barred critique of societal issues, captured the sentiment of many when he mocked Rayner's comments. His laughter in response to her claims wasn't just about her as an individual. It was about the broader system of governance that seems out of touch with the realities of its citizens. Gervais's humor often serves as a mirror, reflecting back the absurdities and injustices of the world. In this case, His criticism highlighted the growing chasm between those in power and the people they're supposed to represent. Gervais's remarks also underscored a larger truth: that the public is growing weary of leaders who appear disconnected, unprepared, or indifferent. The comedian's sarcastic quips about privilege and hypocrisy in politics resonated because they pointed to a systemic problem. Leaders, Gervais suggested, are no longer seen as public servants but as a class of their own, insulated from the challenges faced by ordinary citizens. One of the most troubling aspects of this controversy is the lack of accountability. When pressed for specific answers about housing policies, Rayner deflected or relied on pre-written talking points, leaving many questions unanswered. This approach isn't unique to her. It's a symptom of a larger trend in politics, where leaders often prioritize damage control over transparency. Accountability means owning up to mistakes, acknowledging public concerns, and working actively to address them. Yet time and again, citizens are met with vague reassurances and scripted responses that do little to instill confidence.